Good evening and welcome to the November 28th, 2016 post-Thanksgiving version of the Abington Township Board of Commissioners Public Works Committee meeting, and may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Hecker.
Here.
Farron.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Myers. Here. Ruff.
Here.
Thank you. The first order of business this evening is to approve the minutes of the November 2nd, 2016 Public Works Committee meeting, and I'll give you a second because they're really long and take a while to get through. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public Works Committee has 5 agenda items this evening. PW1 is a motion to approve final payment for the 2014 Capital Improvement Program demolition of 1004 Urban Road to Tamco Construction Company in the amount of $26,000 to be funded from the 2014 bond issue, and I so move.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Fellow commissioners? Comments from staff? Any comments from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. PW2. This is a motion to approve final payment for the 2014 bond issue Phase 3 storm sewer projects to Associated Paving Contractors, APCON, in the amount of $3,914 to be funded from the 2014 bond issue, and I so move.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions from the committee? Fellow commissioners, staff, members of the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. PW3. This is a motion to approve final payment for the Highland Avenue Storm Sewer Project to N. Abenizio Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $54,301.60 to be funded from the 2014 bond issue and fund balance, and I so move.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the committee? Fellow commissioners, staff, members of the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. PW4 is a motion to adopt resolution number 16-032 to authorize the Township of Abington to approve a revision to the official sewage facilities plan in connection with the property located at 101 Washington Lane, currently served by the Borough of Jenkintown for sanitary collection, Cheltenham Township for conveyance, and I so move.
Second.
Any comments from members of the committee? Commissioner Klein.
Thank you, Commissioner Hecker. I'll be recusing myself due to my involvement in the project.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from members of the committee? Mr. Wrigley, do you care to comment on this?
Just to let the committee know, this is kind of a formality that DEP requested. The exemption mailer was submitted to them originally, and DEP wouldn't accept that. They wanted more detailed information. To get that detailed information, they go through this full planning module. Part of the paperwork that's in here is a resolution. The resolution
Yep.
basically is acknowledging that you've looked at it, reviewed it, and it tells DEP that everything's okay, if you're satisfied with it.
Gotcha. I am. Any comments or questions from members of the committee, fellow commissioners, audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Lefevre, PW5 is not, the specific details are not filled in on the agenda. Could you update us on that?
That's correct. The bids will not be received until Monday of next week. Once the bids will be received, the details will go out to the Board of Commissioners, so you're in a position to make a decision at your meeting next Thursday
Gotcha.
night. So it's our suggestion if we just allow this to proceed to the full board next week, with the understanding we'll have more detailed information within that time period.
So are we voting on what's worded here, or are we going to take a vote as a committee to allow this to proceed?
I suggest we just make a vote to allow this to proceed to the full board.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion in that
I'll
regard?
make a motion to pass this along to the full board with the full information involved.
Second.
Second. Are there comments or questions from the committee? Fellow commissioners, members of the audience. Mr. Bell.
I'm the only one here. It's easy.
Please come forward. Just for the record, if you state your name and address.
Ray Bell, 2076 Parkview Avenue. The one question I have in relation to this, the RFPBs and next year's budget, which I believe is coming shortly, what is the, or do we have contingencies that if something goes not the way it's supposed to go, and our part-time engineer decides to leave, what's the options that we have? Have we done any interviewing for full-time people? What's the contingencies? Other than, I'm quite sure that these RFPs, whatever they are, is a lot more than what this township has seen in the past. I would like to believe that the engineer is going to be here forever on a part-time basis. But when you're talking budget and something happens, the contingency means we're going to have to pull that money out of someplace. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Should we vote, and then we could address?
I would suggest we vote on the
All right,
motion
and
for
then
the
we
board,
can
and then
answer
we
Mr.
can
Bell's
address it.
question. Okay. All those in favor of PW5?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Mr.
Regarding
LaFever.
the request for proposals for engineer, we did receive 9 responses from area engineering firms. The committee obviously hasn't had the opportunity to meet yet and discuss them. I've been conveying to the firms that expressed interest that we probably wouldn't get to this till January, and at that point, have the opportunity to look at it and decide how you wish to proceed.
I would concur. I think regardless of the proposed course of action in the future, this, I think, merits a substantive discussion both among the committee and among the full board to bring all the issues to bear and decide what is the correct approach. And I don't think we have to be time-bound by the calendar right now to do that. We put the RFPs out. We got them. We're in the middle of the budget process, and I think this issue would merit far more substantive conversation than we've had to date.
Agreed.
With that, I will open the floor to any other additional comments related to general matters of public works.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. I also had concerns about the engineer, and I had asked, I obviously missed tonight's discussion, but I had asked the manager whether we were looking for a part-time or full-time engineer, and I still don't understand how that happened. So are we looking for a full-time engineer when we put these bids out for the firm?
Well, I think, and the manager can speak to this more directly, I think the RFPs are to engage the services of various engineering firms for the full range of duties that are required on behalf of the township. In our current structure, Mr. Powers has been able to work part-time with the members of his office in order to fulfill those obligations. I think moving forward, the conversation is about what is the right long-term model, and I think, as you just heard, we don't have an answer to that question yet. There's more substantive conversation required.
Yeah, so that was, rather a shock that all of a sudden we could manage with a half-time engineer when we had so many issues that at times it was engineering services that were needed in bulk when we had lots of roads that needed to be done and so on. So I'm not sure how that half-time engineer got even started. So there's a lot of things that I think warrant some of that. So my big concern tonight is about the roads in the township, and I reported 3 roads recently that need to be done. But my concern is we don't really have an understanding, I think, among the residents of how this works. And I'm not sure that it works the same way that so the code enforcement that works by reporting only. So you have to report or they're not going to enforce the code. I assume if there's long grass, even though the truck drivers see it, the trash every single week, the trash truck has every single inch of the road covered, but unless a neighbor reports long grass, broken curbs, or so on, that doesn't get done. Am I correct in that understanding? This is by reporting only?
I think by and large that is true. I think I wouldn't say that neighbor reporting is the only mechanism by which these things are brought to the attention of the relevant township staff, but I would defer to the department heads to speak to that issue directly. But I also think if what you're suggesting is that every employee who's out on a truck is also a code enforcement official in addition to their job, I don't think that's a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, no, that actually wasn't it. I think the first thing that I'm suggesting is that I think nobody's really clear how it does work. And when they see it not working, like they see streets full of potholes, they go, well, why aren't they fixing them? Okay, and then the township's going, well, why aren't you calling in? Okay, so, if you want people to call in code violations or they will not be fixed, then there should be some, and I hate signs, okay, but there should be some postings somewhere and a tremendous amount of information coming from the township in circulars or in your newsletters and so on to get to as many people as possible so that they know. I know now from having come here so many times, but I'm still confused as to how certain things are enforced and how they're not. So maybe we could clarify that and actually get that information out to the public.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I respond?
Certainly, Commissioner Myers. Yes, thank you very much.
I think that you're missing an important part of the message, and every inch of this township is represented by a commissioner. The best route, and what I always say to the residents of Ward 8, and I think that I'm joined by every commissioner on this board, is please contact us if you see anything that's a problem. It's certainly not being left blindly or unattended, but not everybody sees everything. And every commissioner up here has email, cell phone, home phone. There's 5 ways to reach your commissioner. And that's really the best avenue, the best advice for every resident. If they don't know who to contact, if they don't know what to do about the high grass next door or the pothole in front of their driveway, call their commissioner.
And I just wanted to say, because that's what I think is a problem. A lot of people don't know who their commissioner is, believe it or not. And I've often heard that people, from commissioners, that they don't have very many of their people on email or contact lists. I just wanted to answer the thing you said about the truck. I wonder if you couldn't make an insurance arrangement with the trucks to once a month or once every other month or something, have a spotter in the truck. And I agree, the trash truck driver should be concentrating on his trash truck and so on. But there's an extra seat in that truck. And a spotter, when the truck is already covering every inch of road, you could send somebody out for, fairly minimal pay and cover that chore. I just wanted to mention that as a possibility.
Thank you for your suggestion. Mr. Michelot, would you like to speak?
Sure. I have, at any point in time, 4 to 5 foremen that are on the road every day. If there's a problem out there, if they spot a problem, they take care of it. It's taken care of almost immediately, or as fast as we possibly can. We also have other mechanisms. If you go on our website, and most of the township residents know that if you have a problem, call the refuse department, just come to my office. I mean, we get hundreds of phone calls a day with questions. So everybody knows out there if there's a problem, call the township, just call the normal township, and they will direct you to our department. Tell us what the problem is, whether it's code enforcement, whether it's wastewater, whether it's parks and recreation, or whether it's public works. Every complaint or problem that is out there is taken care of. As far as maintenance on the roads, I think our roads are in excellent shape. Apparently not shared by you, but shared by me and many other people. You can go out there and find a skin patch. A skin patch is not a pothole. Sometimes we just a cold snap, a frost one night will cause a piece of the 1-inch piece of the blacktop to come up. That happens, we go out there and repair it immediately. We note it. So when we start looking in the future for roads, if that's just a isolated little piece that came out, or whether it's an entire road that's starting to break up, we note that. If that has to be repaired, we work on it and make sure that it's on the list to get repaired. We leave no street unattended to, nor do we leave a street out there that is dangerous or hazardous to anyone out there. And that's been that way for as long as I've been here, and I've been here a long time.
With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Call to order the Code Enforcement and Land Development Committee meeting for November 28th, 2016. Commissioner Sanchez is excused. Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Markman?
Here.
DePlacido?
Here.
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 So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 2nd, 2016?
Motion.
Second? Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes passed. We have two items on the agenda. CE1, Resolution number 16-34, motion to adopt Resolution number 16-34 to renew the 3-year agreement with Montgomery County Planning Commission for a planning assistance contract to be funded from contingency account number 01-06-087-5305 in the amount of $13,104 for 2017, $13,240.50 for 2018, and $13,377 for 2019, totaling $39,721.50. Do I have any comments from our code enforcement officer on this contract?
Thank you, sir. As many of you know, we've been in a contract with the county since 2008. And we the contract's for every 3 years. The county pays half, and we pay half of the cost. This is also for the contract, which, as you know, we've had Michael Narkowitz for several years now. He's done a super job. He's worked on the zoning rewrite. He's helped out. He does reviews of all the subdivision plans. He's going to be doing with the comprehension plan, and he deals with us on a daily basis, more or less. He's always available. It's a great thing, as you know, for the past. For the past 45 years, I've been with Abington Township. This has been the best form of consultants that we've had. We've had independent ones prior to that, and they didn't seem to work out for a while until we started this program in 2008. I encourage the board to, again, approve this, and I hope you do so.
So you think it's a good value?
I think so, sir.
And you think they do good work, obviously?
I think so.
So any comments from the committee? Any from commissioners? Commissioner Spiegelman?
I just want to briefly echo what Director Mateo said. And I've had the opportunity to work with the Planning Commission on a number of projects, most extensively on the Old York Susquehanna project, and their input is phenomenal. I mean, there's such a brain trust there. They're incredibly helpful, very, very generous with their time. This is a total bargain.
Any other comments? Manager LaFever?
We do need a second on that motion before the board.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment. All right, I guess we have some public comment on this.
Nice try, Mr. Markham. Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So my problem with the planner, when the planner first came, is that the focus seemed to be from the county down here to get the ideas. And there's very little going back into the neighborhoods. Although we held endless meetings, we really didn't have a lot of individual neighbors planning all of that. So that was when he first came back in I think it was probably 2008 or so. So one of the questions I have is, Mr. Narkowitz is an awfully nice guy, by the way, so you couldn't have gotten a nicer guy to do it. I wonder, why is this coming from the contingency fund? Why is this? Isn't the contingency fund, I don't understand exactly how your funds are set up. But if it's a contingency fund, is this coming from the general fund, unbudgeted?
No, it is budgeted. I don't believe it is in the, when you reference
That's
it.
what Kevin told me to do.
Okay. I'll have to verify with the finance director, and I'll be happy to get back to you by email tomorrow to answer that question.
Okay, because we would have normally budgeted for, if we weren't getting one there, we would have had to budget
Exactly.
for, okay. Do we know if it's in this year's budget? So,
Yes, it was not taken from contingency this year.
all right. The other question I have is, in some of the stuff there, you had, a new comprehensive plan, the historic preservation inventory. Some of this stuff is not necessary. The comprehensive plan is necessary, but again, to go with a comprehensive plan, I would love to see you guys go into the community and find out what the community wants first, rather than have the planners from the county doing the planning in our communities. It's not always coming out the way we want it. The economic development, part of that was under this umbrella. So again, money's coming out of my pocket for somebody's economic development. So, and I want to explain how that looks to me on job creation and economic development. When you take money out of my pocket to do economic development, that means I can't do economic development with my own business. When you do job creation by giving money to people who are creating jobs, you're taking it from my pocket, and in my business, I have less money to create jobs for me. Okay? So I think the business of government should not be, and this is in, now we're in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways.
Can you sum up now? We're kind
Sure.
of reaching through
Yes.
the-
Now we're in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that we are taking from taxpayer pockets and economically developing. In other words, giving it to someone else to develop with. Okay? The taxpayers would like to do the developing themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
CE2 is actually taken off the agenda, basically to get some comments from the solicitor on that.
That's correct. I spoke with Chairperson Commissioner Sanchez, who asked the opportunity for the Township Solicitor to provide additional information to the committee before we move ahead with the authorization to advertise. We hope to have that information to you by next month, so we can put it on the agenda at that time.
Okay, thank you. So with that, do I have any comments from the committee or the commissioners on general matters of code enforcement? And then do I have any public comment on general matters of code enforcement? Name and address for the record, please.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So if somebody is developing in the township and they get approval from the zoning board to do a certain kind of zoning, and that approval has conditions, can those conditions just be ignored, undone, rewritten?
Well, approval is not gotten from the zoning board, actually. That's for variances. Approval is gotten through a land development process, so.
The approval for it, so...
For development comes through a land development process. It doesn't come from the zoning board. The zoning board is for
So the zoning board would
variances.
approve the zoning.
No, zoning is already written, and if they comply with zoning, they come in front of the township with a land development plan.
Okay, so we recently had a case, which I'm sure you know where I'm headed with this.
I don't.
We had a case where there were 4 conditions that the zoning was approved, the zoning as they preferred to build was approved, contingent on 4 conditions. Those conditions included a requirement to meet those 4 conditions in land development. Okay, and in that particular case...
Well, what's your point? Just explain what...
So, well, I'm trying to understand how...
What plan and what conditions are you talking about?
So that was for the colonnade, and there were 4 conditions. One of them was that the parking had to be approved in land development. In fact, the other conditions did as well. All the conditions had to be met in land development. And so let me just get my page. So the 4 conditions that had to be met were no less than 1 on-site parking space per unit, all parking spaces a minimum of 9 by 18, all conditions must be met during the land development process, and access for residents only shall be provided on Washington Lane. Then what happened is the attorneys wrote up an agreement by which the parties were going to work. And the problem with the agreement is it didn't always match up with code, so that created many problems.
I think procedurally
But-
that's not accurate.
No.
Solicitor can address that.
No, the conditions that are being cited simply mean that if the applicant went to land development, they could not ask for a waiver of any of those conditions. So what the zoning hearing board says, when they listed those conditions as part of their approval, if they went through land development, those conditions had to stay. It does not mean that they had to go to land development. And I believe the manager has attempted to explain this to the speaker on multiple occasions. Okay.
No, actually, it hasn't been explained yet, and I'd like to understand it here. So I said, number 3 says, all conditions must be met
Did they in fact go to land development?
No, well, they submitted land development plans and then they withdrew them when they ran into problems with PennDOT on Township Line Road.
So this was in fact, if they went to land development, it's moot because they did not in fact complete
go
land
to-
development.
they didn't go
They
to
went
land
and then they
development.
withdrew their plans, so basically that's moot.
Well, 2 things happened. The first thing that happened was the solicitor rewrote the agreement with them.
No, they didn't go to land development.
Well, let me finish.
Wait, we started this by saying if in fact they went to land development, they would have to do these 4 things.
No,
Land
that's-
development.
that's
They didn't,
not what it
They
says.
didn't go to land development. We started this out by land development. If it's something other than land development, then
Let me
truthfully, it's
let me
probably not
explain.
our issue.
Let me explain, and then you'll understand it. The zoning was approved with the following conditions. These were the conditions of the
Zoning
zone.
or land
The
development?
zoning, the zoning approval, from the zoning hearing board approval of this plan was contingent on these 4 conditions being met
Okay.
that I read to you.
If they in fact went to land development.
Okay, but let me just finish. Then the solicitor rewrote an agreement with them and said, included in this was, land development approval will be required for the installation of any new security entrances or gatehouses, as well as any ingress or egress changes to the property. Completely different from what land development was required to approve these other 3 things
Completely
at the
incorrect.
time.
Completely incorrect.
What, you mean I read it incorrectly?
No, you're taking 2 different things and you're trying to squeeze them into your point, and that's not actually what's
I'm trying to
occurring.
understand them.
The 2 conditions that the zoning hearing board, when they said these conditions must remain when you go to land development, what the zoning hearing board did not want the applicant to do was to come to all of you during land development and then try to get some of those conditions of the zoning hearing board approval changed. So the condition of the zoning approval was that the parking, the ingress and egress, and the width of the parking spaces had to remain during land development. What was added in this agreement was that anything to do with ingress and egress on Township Line had to be done during the land development process.
So, but the parking was completely omitted from the agreement.
Parking is, because it didn't need to be included, because it's already in the zoning hearing board opinion.
Well, I think honestly, if you would submit
And
your
it's
questions
in
in
your
writing, I mean, we'll get you concise answers, but
Okay, but-
obviously there's some confusion because land development is one thing. They didn't complete land development, so anything to do with land development is moot at this point. If you have specific questions, just submit them in writing because obviously there's some confusion.
So that's the other question that I have is land development virtually never comes at the end of anything. The purpose of land development is seeing how the lighting is, whether there's a traffic thing you didn't think about, whether it's going to affect the neighbors, whether their parking spaces are going to block fire.
That's kind of a broad assertion that land development is a complex process.
That includes
That's
those things.
governed by the MPC, and It's not, you can't simply put land development as those 5 things. Land development
I didn't say
has
those
a
5
lot
things.
of things. So if you, I mean, specifically, obviously, there's some procedural questions here. If you have some, you should submit them in writing, because I think that's the way to get a more clear and concise answer that we can
Well,
understand
but
exactly
I want
what
the
you're
people
answering.
hearing at home to understand.
But it didn't
that
go through land development.
In this case, they did not go to land development.
No.
They have people actually residing there. They've approved all the parking, and they've not been to land development yet. And that's what I want
Well,
to, first
and
of
I
all.
can tell you right now that there's buildings all over the township right now that currently exist that don't have to go through land development to be occupied. To occupy a building, to have to go through land development, there's a criteria for changes to the property that then require land development. And whether
So
this
you're
property
saying
applies
this
to the
one didn't-
criteria.
You're saying this one didn't require land development?
I don't know, but it's a procedural issue, which I think if you actually submit your questions, we can probably address. But the buildings can be occupied without going through land development. Land development is for new buildings, new development, and then substantial changes that occur to existing properties that don't fall within
Or if
existing
your approval
zoning.
was perhaps contingent on it. If it
Well,
was
it depends on whether it
contingent on
required,
going
there's
to
two
land
separate
development.
issues.
The approval was not contingent on it going to land development.
It said-
But you know what, I think if
That's
you.
not what it says.
What
You know
does
what?
it say? What does it say
It
exactly?
says if you go to land development, the issues regarding parking and ingress and egress and the width of the parking spaces must be adhered to
That's
during the land
reworded,
development
so they didn't say, if you decide to go to land development, you can do this.
Well,
They
then you can pick
said,
out
your
any
zoning
one
is
sentence to
approved
try to
based
make
on
your
these
point.
4 conditions.
All right, I think we understand what you're saying. If you have more questions, just submit in writing. Thank you.
Okay, all right, so let me just say,
Your
also.
3 minutes are up. I think that's fine. You submit your
Okay,
questions,
the Beta,
and we'll
the
respond to
Betawood is
them.
on for tomorrow night?
I'm not sure. Is Betawood?
Yes?
Zoning board,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you. Do I have any other comments for the Code Enforcement
I
Committee?
do just want to protest the number of times that I was interrupted, because if I can't finish a sentence, you can't even understand what it was I was going to say.
Okay, that's true. I can't. Do I have any other comments in general from the committee? I have a question. Oh, Mr. Bell, please come up.
Raymond Bell, 2076 Parkview Avenue. Even though it was taken off of the agenda on this medical marijuana, this is the first time I've ever heard of this, but I just have very simple questions, and maybe they'll be addressed when it comes up. First of all, on the medical marijuana dispensary, subject to the specific criteria, which are 10, who's going to enforce that? You don't have to, it doesn't have to be answered.
This is mostly going to be regulated by the state. We're going to have all municipalities are going to be given the opportunity, it appears, to come up with some basic land development and zoning criteria, but the regulation of these are going to be regulated by the state. It's going to be highly regulated just the way pharmacies are highly regulated by the state and by the federal government.
Okay, so the medical marijuana grower, processor, subject to specific criteria, that's also going to be state regulated?
Yes.
And last is the parking and transportation standards. Is that also going to be regulated by state?
No, there are certain areas that we believe, now remember, the state has passed the medical marijuana law, but they have not.
Unfortunately,
they
that
have
we're
not-
one of the 23 states that passed it. Go ahead.
But they have not as of yet promulgated any guidelines for dispensaries or for grower processors. When they do, we'll have a clear indication of what we're going to be able to regulate and what we're not going to be able to regulate. What we think will be the case is that most municipalities will be able to have some basic zoning criteria that they are allowed to enforce with respect to these facilities, but we're not going to be able to regulate or police the actual operation of these. That will be done by the state.
Okay, I appreciate your comment. The one concern I had was the enforcement of parking, but since the state's, that'll come up, I'm experienced in the enforcement of parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned.